Hi, welcome to my channel. Today I thought I would talk about one of my children. I had a baby pass away from SIDS almost 9 years ago, and I thought I would talk a little bit about his story. And the reason I feel like I want to do this is because so many people don't talk about SIDS anymore. Doctors and I don't know necessarily doctors, but I mean, I know there are doctors, but mostly people and the public, I guess would be a better word, don't think that SID still exists or that still happens, and it does. And things have even changed to the point where coroners don't even label SIDS anymore. It's more ruled as an unknown death. And the problem with that is they aren't researching enough to find a cure or a way to find these markers in babies to hopefully one day prevent SIDS from happening ever again. And, unfortunately, I am in the group of parents that had to deal with losing their child. So a little bit of a backstory is I got married fairly young and had my kids quite quickly, and we had a boy and then 3 girls. And I believed that we were done. I didn't think I was going to have any more children. All I wanted was boys, and I kept getting girls, which I love. But it was like more of a disappointment every time we had another baby for my son, because he really wanted a brother and he obviously never got one. And so after we had our 4th child, we seemed happy and complete. And I even spent time working on myself, and I gain a lot of weight and stuff when I'm pregnant. And I spent, hard work losing all the weight and getting back to how, feeling good about myself, thinking that our family was done. My kids are all very close in age. My older 2 are 2 years apart. My 2nd and 3rd child are 11 months apart. And my 3rd and 4th child are a little bit less than 2 years apart. So not total stair steps, but very close. I had basically 4 kids under 5. So life was good and I felt content. Well, the summer of 2009, we decided that maybe we should have one more baby. I kind of felt like something was missing. My husband felt the same. I had gotten myself back pretty healthy, that I thought, maybe this pregnancy will be different, so I was kind of excited to have another baby. I had hoped maybe we get a boy, and that would be a way to kind of round out and complete our family. So it was a little further apart from the rest of the kids, and I realized that it isn't far apart in maybe most people's terms, but at this point we figured this child would be about a little more than 2.5 years younger than our 4th child. So we thought we should hurry and do it now, just so we don't have such a wide break, a big break between those two. I got pregnant pretty much right away and very excited, and I am very impatient, so I like to find out what I'm having right away or as soon as I possibly can. And I know nowadays you can find out even earlier, and it irks me because I had to wait. And I think with my first one, I couldn't even find out till I was 24 weeks, which was like torture. But with him, I was able to go in at 17 weeks and pay to have a 3D ultrasound and also find out what he was, or what it was, I guess I should say. And we found out it was a boy. It was one of the most happiest days of our life. And we decided to share it with our family. And so at this time, I had family that lived here besides just my parents. And we had a big party, and I made a cake that we were going to cut into, and it would say what it was, a boy or a girl. But it was so exciting. And I'm crying. I don't know why I'm crying already, but it was just very exciting to be having a boy and my son to be getting a brother, even though they would be about 7 years apart. So the pregnancy went well. I had a few scares during the pregnancy. They thought something had looked abnormal in his brain. I went to a high-risk doctor that looked at it, and everything ended up being fine. He was perfect, and we just couldn't be happier. I was due in the middle of May. Oddly enough, I was due actually on my grandpa's birthday, my dad's side, and which I thought was kind of cool. So the beginning of May, it was Easter. I don't remember exact dates, but we had an early Easter that year in 2010. And on that day, my husband had some work that he had to go to, and so I was home on that Sunday with all my children, and the oldest being 7. I woke up in the middle of the night with excruciating back pain, and I didn't know what it was. It woke me up. I hopped out of bed, was kind of like, you kind of move and twist trying to find out what's comfortable, how to get that pain to go away. My husband, I remember, he woke up and was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And he's like, "Okay." And he went back to sleep, where I was on the floor, like in the child's pose, cat pose, trying to just relieve whatever that really strong pain was that was in. And it was probably one of the most painful things I'd ever felt at that point. Finally was able to fall asleep, probably just from being extremely exhausted. The next morning when I woke up was Easter. We went to church. We had dinner with my parents, an earlier dinner with my parents and other family members that lived here. The odd thing about this pain is it would be very intense and strong, and then it would go away and I'd be able to function normally, and then it would come back, and then it would go away. So, which is why I didn't think anything weird was going on. I just figured, by the time it's my 5th baby, I've had everything under the sun with having an early pregnancy. I've been induced. I had a preemie that was in the hospital for 6 weeks. I feel like I had experienced everything at this point. So these new aches and pains weren't really odd to me. It was intense, and I thought was odd. Well, that was weird, but not weird enough for me to call a doctor. So a few days passed, and now we are on a Tuesday. So 2 days had passed. I woke up early that morning to get my kids ready for school. My son was in 1st grade, and I had 2 daughters in preschool. And so I was sitting on the bed and doing their hair to leave for school. And I had not gotten dressed myself, and I had realized getting up to get something that I was actually spotting. And I knew that that wasn't totally normal. Again, not freaked out, but just knew that that wasn't normal. So I told my husband, and we should probably call the doctor as soon as we get the kids off to school, just to make sure they know what's going on, and if they want to see me, fine. If not, at least they know we told them. So of course they wanted us to come in. So we went to the hospital after dropping those ones off, and we just had my one daughter with us. And they did an exam, and everything seemed normal. So they were like, let's just listen to his heart rate for a while. And they were going to set me up in a room in their office where they would just have me on the monitors, and they wanted to monitor him for like an hour. So I was there with my husband and my daughter, and we were had like an old school TV where they had VHSs that my daughter was watching, and we were sitting there, and I believe we didn't even make it an hour, and the nurse came in and said that they're not really sure what's going on, that something was odd. His heart rate was fluctuating, and they didn't see anything wrong. So just to be on the safe side, they were going to send me over to the hospital where I could just be monitored for a little longer, just to make sure everything is okay with him. So we headed over to the hospital, which was in the same area that we were already in. And they checked me in and got me all situated. And at this point, I believe we had called my parents and my brother and his family to let them know what's going on, and to ask for help with my other kids, and to come get my younger daughter because we didn't know how long we were going to be there. They told me I'd probably be going home that night, or I might have to stay overnight and go home in the next day. Well, during that time, they were having me move positions, like they just couldn't get a good reading on him, and they couldn't figure out why his heart rate was dropping so low. So they did an ultrasound, and again everything looked good. I had low fluid, so they wanted to give me a bunch of fluids as well while I was there. They just didn't see anything wrong to what was causing the baby's distress. At this point, I had been there a few hours, and doctors were coming in and out of my room. My main doctor was the one that kept coming to see me, and she was very concerned. She said they're not sure what's going on. He wasn't looking very good, and he was breech, which I had known the whole time because you could feel his head under my rib, and which used to just be like, come on, little dude, get down. I had no C-sections at this point. I had very easy deliveries. So my worst fear was a C-section. But I knew he was breech. And so she kept coming in and, saying, I don't know, we might have to take him. We might have to deliver you today. And I remember saying, I'll deliver him breech. I will. I'll try it. I know it can be done. I could probably do it. I don't want to be cut open. I don't want that. I was just totally afraid. At this point, it was getting bad enough where they were trying to move me and get me in a position to hopefully alleviate whatever was stressing him out. I had another doctor come in because things started to calm down. All of a sudden, his heart rate started to normalize, and he was okay. And at this point, my doctor had gone home, and there was another doctor on call that was at the hospital still. And I remember her coming in and being like, you would already have your baby if you were my patient at this point. She goes, I kept telling her to deliver you now. And she kept wanting to wait, and, your baby's doing okay. So, that kind of freaked me out. I remember being like, oh, I'm glad I don't have you for my main doctor, because she'd had me cut open and been out. And not that I would do anything to save my child's life, but my worst fear was a C-section. So at this point, they said, we're going to keep you through the night. Hopefully we'll be able to know more in the morning. We're going to get you up early and do a ultrasound, and we'll go from there. So they got me up very early and took me down to their office, did a thorough ultrasound, and then sent me back to my room. I had the worst night of sleep. I think I had called my husband crying because they wanted me sleeping in the most odd position. So basically wasn't sleeping, and I was just so tired. They had got me back to my room and asked if I wanted to order lunch, and I said sure. They told me I could eat. So I went ahead and ordered lunch and had lunch brought and ate. The doctor had walked in and sat down on my bed and was kind of emotional. And I figured something wasn't right. So she sat down and she goes, we're going to have to deliver you right now. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, and it's going to be a C-section. And I'm crying because what I didn't want. And she said somehow or some way in the middle of the night, a 7 centimeter tear had appeared on the ultrasound in my placenta, and I was actively bleeding into my uterus, which, come to find out, was that excruciating pain in my back that I was having. And that I probably should have let them know that, but again, I didn't know. So I was actively bleeding into the amniotic fluid, and that is why he was breech, and that is also why he wasn't doing very well. So she says, we're going to take you back and deliver you. When did you last eat? And I'm like, I just ate. So she's like, oh, well, we're going to have to wait now. So we're going to deliver you for the exact time, but it was in the evening. And so, because when you have a cesarean, you shouldn't have eaten any time before having it, unless it's, of course, an emergency. So she said, right now he's doing okay, so we're going to wait. It didn't take long. I think within a couple hours, he had started doing even worse. So she came in and said, we're taking you back now. So I couldn't even wait the time that I needed to, because his heart rate was just dropping. They got me back there and got him delivered. And it took him 7 minutes to breathe. He had swallowed a lot of blood and was really unresponsive. He was put on a ventilator to help with his breathing. He was born early, so I had him, they consider him 6 weeks early, but I was like 34 weeks in 6 days or something. So to me, he was 5 weeks early. On record, he was 6 weeks early. So I knew he would be staying in the hospital a little bit, especially because boys generally don't do as well as girls. I had my third baby 9 weeks early, and she had spent 6 weeks in the NICU. So I'd already been through this before. What I hadn't been through before is him not breathing. So he had a very hard time breathing when he was first born. I have a video my mom filmed of the whole thing of them like counting minutes and doing all these things to make him breathe, and it's pretty intense. I didn't know what was going on very much, being that I was still in surgery. So after that point, everything was great. When I went back for my 2-week appointment to check my incision, the doctor was like, I don't know if you realize how bad it was. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And she's like, there really wasn't any amniotic fluid. He was basically floating in blood, and he had swallowed so much blood, which is why he had a hard time breathing. And she said he was actually, the reason he was breech was because there was only as little bit of pocket of air or fluid, of amniotic fluid, left at the top of my uterus that he was using to be able to breathe. So if they had waited really any longer, he would have drowned, which is really scary looking back at it now. But of course, I didn't know most of that during the time. And even, like I said, in the first 2 weeks of his life, he was just there and perfect and everything. We were so excited to have him in our family. He was a very hard baby. He was a very needy baby. But I couldn't have been happier to have another little boy to complete our family. That morning, I had gotten up. Crazy enough, I scheduled an 8 a.m. appointment, his 4-month-old appointment at 8 a.m. And so I had to get all the kids up, dressed, out the door to the doctor's office before 8 a.m. And I remember doing it and thinking, holy crap, why would I schedule this? That was insane. And I remember being at the doctor's office with him and them saying how perfect he was. And he weighed 12 pounds and 6 ounces. And he was just, he made us so happy. All of us. Everyone fought over holding him and taking care of him and everything. I don't really remember much of the rest of that day. I remember I was trying to potty train my almost 3-year-old daughter and it not going very well. So we couldn't leave the house because of that. So we were around in the house pretty much the entire day. And I remember that evening making dinner and he was sitting in one of those bumbo chairs on the counter with me, and I remember talking to him and thinking, wow, he's so happy. Because he was a very fussy baby, but I remember him being happy that day. School was getting ready to start. It was going to be starting, this was a Monday, and it was going to be starting on Thursday. So we were trying to get somewhat in a routine. I'll lay him down for a quick nap, get all the kids in bed, and then I was going to wake him up and spend the rest of the evening with him, which is kind of what we used to do when my husband would work. I would spend my evenings with him. He loved to dance while I listened to music. And so, and I would hold him while I watched TV or whatever I did that evening. So I laid him down, and it was about, I don't even remember. I know I did back then, but I don't want to try and give details I don't fully remember. I laid him down, and it was so hot that I used to put the fan on so it would circulate the air in the room. He could roll over from his belly to his back, like kind of they accidentally do it. A little while later, I was going upstairs to tuck in the rest of the children and to then get him. And as I was getting ready to go into my daughter's room, the room was directly across from my bedroom. I looked and he had completely turned not where he was. So I literally remember thinking, ah, you silly baby. And I walked in there to move him back. And that's when I noticed he was completely blue. Sorry, I didn't know it would be this hard to still talk about because I love talking about him, but not necessarily about this. I had my phone in my hand. I immediately grabbed him. I remember screaming, call 911. Not really sure to who because no one else was in the house with me but the kids, and they don't have cell phones or phones. And I had my phone in my hand. And I'm screaming it, and I'm running down the stairs, and I'm dialing 911. And I immediately ran over to our neighbors across the street, who was a police officer. So I knew he had CPR training, or for whatever reason, that's where I ran. I didn't like consciously think, oh, I should take him over there. That's just kind of what I did. And I remember calling 911 as I was running, and I remember screaming, my baby's not breathing. As soon as I got to their door, and their door was open because it being very hot and it's now in the evening, he heard me, the police officer heard me say that, and he immediately like jumped down his stairs, grabbed him out of my arms, and began doing CPR on him. I had hung up on the 911 call lady because I couldn't get my thoughts out when she would ask, "What's your address?" And I had heard his wife, the police officer's wife, calling 911, which is why I decided just to hang up because I couldn't say anything either. And I remember pleading to our friend to get him to breathe, help him. I'm gonna have a headache. And when the ambulance showed up, they immediately took over and rushed him to the hospital. I was driven over to the hospital by a police officer. And when I got there, my husband had already made it there. I had called him and told him, and he immediately left there. I had called my dad and my dad and my mom, who had immediately ran over to our house so that my brother could watch my other kids. And I was okay. So I was taken to the hospital by the cop and put in a room where it was me, my husband, my mother, and I don't even remember if there was one or two other people in there. I don't remember if they were talking to us. I don't remember if they were saying anything. I don't remember if I was saying anything. I just know I was crying. And I remember the moment that, again, I don't remember who it was, walked in and they said, "We're sorry. We weren't able to revive him." At this point, I remember screaming and telling my mom to let them stop. They let me hold him for not very long, it feels like, but my parents said it was a couple hours, but I think I would still be there today if I could, holding him. But at that point, our whole life would never be the same. I can't breathe. Not knowing what had happened or what went wrong, you just feel like you're in a dream. It doesn't feel real. And what we've learned through our support groups and talking to doctors and everything is that there's nothing we could have done different that would have prevented it. You still, as a mom, you in your mind, you still have that. But maybe that was the worst day of my life. But that is the story of his life. And I'd like to share a couple clips, I'm sure, with you to see how beautiful he was. And he's still part of our family. My kids still talk about him all the time. And we celebrate his birthday. I think I might share another video talking about everything else that we've learned about SIDS, how we helped our children work through this, because that was a real big struggle, and how him and I have worked through this and still work through this. I mean, losing your child isn't something that you get to a point and you're just better, because I miss him every day. I miss the what ifs and the what could have been all the time. And I want to relive those 4 months all the time. I would give anything just to hold him again. Anything. It's kind of a depressing video. I'm sorry for that, but I figured I would just share. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our story. And I hope to talk to you guys again soon. Hopefully with happier circumstances. But I just want people to know that I love talking about him. I know everyone handles grief and death very differently. and people get very uncomfortable, especially when crying's involved. And at least I know for me, if I do cry, it doesn't mean anything to me. It's the fact that I get to talk about him. I love talking about him, whether I'm sad or happy. And to be honest, nowadays, most of the time I don't cry. It's just happy memories of, oh my gosh, remember when he did this, or talking about his birth or whatever with someone or whatever. But letting people know who he was and that he existed and he is part of our family and always will be a part of our family. And I know that it's hard to deal with. I know for me, I remember just saying, I just want to talk to someone who knows what I'm feeling and can tell me what to expect or can tell me what to do because I didn't know what to do or anything like that. But thank you guys so much for watching and taking the time to hear my story of my son, Beckett. And I will see you guys in my next video.